bersama Couchbase dan Bukalapak. Oke, apa kabar semuanya? Baik. Bagus banget ya? Bagus banget ya, udah makan kan? Sekali lagi ya saya tanya, apa kabar semuanya? Oh oke. Gimana tadi makan malamnya? Enak? Mantap, mantap ya. Oke. Hari ini kita akan kedatangan dua speaker. For the first speaker is from Couchbase, Benjamin Den, as a solution engineer, and the second speaker is Anthony Resdi from Bukalapak.
Benjamin, I'm a solutions engineer at Couchbase, and we have Aisha from Couchbase. Today we'll be presenting why Couchbase is the modern database to drive your mission-critical e-commerce platforms. So a little introduction of myself. I graduated from Nanyang Technological University, majoring in business analytics. So when it comes to data, retrieving data, making use of data for your decision-making goals, that is what I'm all about. And before Couchbase, I was at Accenture doing technology consulting for government agencies, or rather 14 government agencies. And there's my QR code if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. So for today's agenda, we'll be touching a little bit about insights from e-commerce customers, e-commerce prospects. Then we'll talk a little bit about how Couchbase helps these companies, these organizations. And then we'll do an in-depth, deep dive on e-commerce use cases, because all of you here are today in Bukalapak, and I want to respect the Bukalapak organization for having us. So we are centering our presentation around e-commerce platforms. And last but not least, we'll be talking about high availability, disaster recovery. Why is it important, and how Couchbase helps our customers to tackle these problems. So, right now, you would have probably thought already about what draws you back to your favorite e-commerce platform. Now, I'm aware that, for the Asian community, we're not that good at raising our hands. So why don't we do this? I'll play back some scenarios to you, and if you agree with me, just give a slight nod of your head. Now, you like your e-commerce platform because it's personalized. When you add something to your cart, like a gaming mouse, it gives you 5 other sellers that sell the same product for a lower price. Or the e-commerce platform now promotes a similar good. So for example, I'm looking for a Razer mouse, mid-tier, because not so professional. Now, your e-commerce platform now recommends you a Logitech mouse of a similar price range. See some heads nodding. So what about a loyalty app, loyalty system, where you purchase some things, or you watch an advertisement, or play some games to earn loyalty points, and these loyalty points help to offset some of the prices of the next product you're purchasing. See a couple of heads nodding. Maybe some of you don't like loyalty points. And how about having a good user experience when it comes to performance? Whether I'm chilling in the beach, I get the same experience whether I'm in Bali, or whether I'm in Jakarta, or whether I'm in New Sentara, for some of you who might be migrating there soon, right? So that is the kind of experience for end users. Now, what about developers and DevOps engineers? Because it's a very technical crowd here. Now, what drives you to use a certain database for your application? Is it familiarity because of the stack that I'm used to? Is it the programming language that I'm already familiar with developing tools with? See some heads nodding. Then this presentation today will be very relatable for you guys. So I'll be starting off with some insights from our e-commerce customers, right? So I believe that if you come out in the news, it is for one of two reasons. Either your application is highly successful, or something terribly bad has happened to your application. So, can we hit the next slide, please? It's not really working. So in 2014, Tesco, which is a very large e-commerce firm, came out in the news. And if you take a look at the bottom left-hand corner here, it tells you exactly why, right? On Black Friday, which is 24 hours, their website had crashed for 12 hours due to 5 times the amount of usual traffic. So this immediately struck a nerve between the management, developers, the architects. They were scrambling, right? And they knew that their current database wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough to give them a performant application at scale when there are many, many users. So that is when they actually went around in the market looking for a new database solution. And Couchbase came up, they evaluated it, and they chose to move forward with Couchbase. Now, the next year, they came out in the news again. But this time, for a very different reason. So they came out on the Sun Independent, which is a news outlet. And if you look at the bottom left-hand corner again, it says that most successful day and busiest day for Black Friday for Tesco sales. And this was a totally opposite reflection of what news just came out last year. Totally opposite. Next slide, please. So I've also collated some insights from that particular use case. What were their requirements when looking for a new database? They needed it to be extremely fast, hold many, many items, many documents, because let's face it, in an e-commerce these days, there are going to be millions of items, if not hundreds of millions of items. So the outcome was pretty impressive. They were able to manage the traffic of the Black Friday sales, extremely performant application, and they also benefited from moving from an RDBMS over to a NoSQL JSON document store. Because for most of you who are familiar with NoSQL databases, it provides you with the flexibility, not so rigid of a schema that you're dealing with. So if I really were to summarize my day-to-day interactions with my customers, it will come down to 3 points. The first being delivering great experiences to your end users. End users are extremely important. Their feedback can change the outlook of your application, the outlook of your organization's revenue in a split second. Next is benefits for your internal team. So here at Couchbase, we recognize that hiring talent is a problem. Finding the talent with the right skills is a problem. More often than not, DevOps engineers, developers, architects, they are familiar already with a certain spec. So with Couchbase, we're saying, let's lower that learning curve for you when you're moving from an RDBMS over to a NoSQL JSON document store. We'll provide you with the SDKs or software development kits of your choice, whether you are a Golang developer or whether you are C# or JavaScript, Java, we have all those mainstream SDKs. Now at the same time, something really unique is that we have SQL on a NoSQL database. Yep, you heard that right. SQL syntax on a NoSQL database. This means select from, where, group by, limit, everything that you're already familiar with. And last but not least, it is to deploy efficiently. So in the past, you would think about deploying databases on bare metal, your own infrastructure, and slowly move towards virtual machines. And now we're talking about the cloud, or even at the edge. So what I mean by the edge is, you are in the plane, and somehow the air stewardess or the air steward knows exactly how much in-store wine they are selling. But this means that they have an edge data center within the plane. So let's do a little quick comparison of what a relational database was created for and why a NoSQL database was invented. So on the RDBMS, think of it now, you guys are familiar, 3NF, right? Third normalized form. You would think about data rigidity. You would think of having a nice ERD diagram, one to many, many to many, making sure that we are doing data modeling for the database. And if you think about why an RDBMS was even created, it was to solve one problem only, the payroll problem. So if I'm transferring money to my colleague Aisha, I must credit money from my account and debit money to her account. Both must happen or none can happen. So that is what a legacy database was created for, transactions and to achieve storage efficiency. Now, if we would think about how applications have evolved, flexible structure, semi-structured data, unstructured data, and we are often coming up with new features, and that means a lot of data modeling changes. So what Couchbase is here to say is, stop the debate between a RDBMS and a NoSQL database. We'll provide you the best of both database worlds. We'll give you a NoSQL JSON document store where you can do things like transactions, NC joins, SQL query language, NC joins, I already said that. So all of the good stuff that you would prior have thought of when you would think of an RDBMS. So to give you a little bit of a history of Couchbase, we started off in 2011. Today we have more than 1,000 employees. We are Nasdaq listed, and we are also found on all of the popular clouds: Alibaba, GCP, Azure, AWS. Now, as we built up our customer base over time, we now have got some of the world's industry leaders doing very interesting things with our database. So you might see some familiar names up there. I'm staying in the Marriott, so Marriott's up there. My loyalty program is managed with the back end of Couchbase. You will see some customers in the payments industry, FSI. You would see some of the gaming companies. So if you play FIFA or EAFC, when you report a bug, EA's app for the bug collection is called Bug Sentry, and that is on the back end of Couchbase. So you might be wondering now, Ben, you've told me a lot about the customers. Now, what do they exactly use you for? Just narrow it down for me, explain it to me. First is performance. We help our customers a lot with performance, and I'll get into this in just a little bit. The next thing is flexibility. So when you think of a NoSQL database, you already think of flexibility. Now, mobile and IoT solutions. Now, Couchbase has got a very unique offering where we have SQL Lite, Couchbase Lite, which is a fully lightweight, full-feature database on your device, whether it's an Apple device, iPad, Android tablet. And we have replications take place when internet connectivity is available. So the last time you bought insurance from your friend who then became a financial advisor, and he brought out his iPad to the cafe, he bought 2 drinks, and the waiter says, no Wi-Fi for you, he's still able to get your signature for a particular insurance plan. And when he's back at home or back in the office where there's internet, the replication takes place automatically without any human intervention. And the last point is, we help our customers with lowering their TCO. And in just a little bit, you'll know why. So one of our use cases that I really wanted to deep dive into was LinkedIn. Now, all of you guys probably use LinkedIn. You're going to get connected sooner or later. But LinkedIn was on Oracle. And at that point in time, they were finding it hard to cope with the scale of the users. More users were taking on LinkedIn, posting stuff, and it's a social network. So everyone's going to get on it at some point in time. So LinkedIn, they found that they could no longer scale in an efficient manner with Oracle, and they have chosen Couchbase as a caching solution, where reads come from Couchbase, and this gives the great user experience that all of us LinkedIn users are facing today. So now, I would like to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is, why is Couchbase the chosen database? What is different with Couchbase than other NoSQL databases in the market? Right, why? And why do customers choose us? How are we different? Now, if you think about an application architecture, right, you would have some sort of front end, app server, and this will connect to a database that lives on some sort of infrastructure, hosted on some sort of infrastructure. Now, the reality of things is, most of our customers start off developing the application with a relational database, like Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server. And then they think about the evolution of data, the need for a flexible data model. And then they think of the NoSQL database, like Mongo, Dynamo, or Aerospike. But then, after using it for the first couple of months into production, they realize that it's not as performant as they thought it would be. So then they need a caching solution, a solution like Redis. And then, if you think about other features of an application, fuzzy search. So when you are searching on the e-commerce for bananas, and you miss out the last A, and it becomes banana, the application then tells you, hey pup, did you mean banana? And if you meant banana, here are 10 different options for you. 100 gram, 200 gram, 300 gram, so on and so forth. So when you think about those features, you need something like Elasticsearch. Now, there are other services that you need when you think about disaster recovery. Oracle Golden Gate. Yeah, I see some heads nodding. So you guys are familiar with Oracle Golden Gate. So what this really causes is data sprawl, right? And really a challenge for management. When something goes wrong, who are you going to turn to? Are you going to turn to your RDBMS solution provider? Are you going to turn to your NoSQL solution provider? Or are you going to turn to the partner who built the whole damn thing? That's the problem. So I had a colleague who went to Thailand and he took a picture of this. I found it really funny. And I think this is the best way of explaining data sprawl. Right? You have a bunch of solutions, it gets really complicated, and when one problem goes down, you have to search for the right wire that caused that problem. So with Couchbase, what we're here to say is, let's erase all of that complexity. We'll provide you all the services that you need for your application out of the box. At our core, Couchbase is a NoSQL JSON document store with integrated caching and KV access. So if you think about Redis, where you're calling a document ID and you're getting the document, that is one data access pattern with Couchbase. Now, we also provide you with relational capabilities. So we recognize that a lot of customers out there need transaction workloads, OLTP, and so we incorporated transactions. And over time, more and more features, NC joins, multi-joins, and SQL query language. Then we also thought about full text search or fuzzy search, and that is another service that we provide to our customers. And I know at this point you might be asking, Ben, there are a lot of services. When I take on Couchbase, do I have to have all of them? And the answer is no. You choose what you need, and you deploy those services within the database. So I've got a customer who didn't have too much time. He said, Ben, explain to me Couchbase in a minute. I took on the challenge. I said, Park, if I were to explain to you in 1 minute, I'll give you 4 Fs. And he looked at me really shocked. What 4 Fs are you talking about? And I said, no, it's not the 4 Fs that you're thinking of. It's that we are fast. We have a memory-first architecture, which means your data is written to and retrieved from memory first. We are flexible. Just like any NoSQL databases, we provide you that flexibility which you need. The third F is familiarity. We give you all the SDKs that your developers are already familiar with, plus things like the familiar features, ACID transactions, NC joins, and also SQL query language. And the last F is affordable. I know it may not come across as an F, but affordable, right? Where we allow you to choose the services that you need, and if you don't need those services, you don't have to deploy them. So now I'll give everyone here just 5 seconds to spot the difference between a relational query language, or rather a query statement, and a Couchbase query statement. Now, chances are you're not going to be able to spot the difference because there is none at all. Now, on the other hand, all the way to your left, you would see a query statement by another NoSQL database in the market called MQL. Extremely complicated, extremely lengthy, and if you have got project managers, data scientists, DBAs, developers who are not familiar with MQL, that means weeks, if not months, of training them to get up to speed on a new database technology. The next service that we're going to really deep dive into today is cross-data center replication. So now this is really common amongst our users, where they see the need to accommodate users in different geographical locations. So an example is, Bukalapak is expanding one day. And not only are they serving Jakarta and Indonesia, but they're also serving Singapore, or Hong Kong, or one day America, right, where your expansion is huge, your user base is increasing, and you need to bring your data closer to your end user. Now think about Oracle Golden Gate. Think about how long you need to configure that. Now hold that thought for a moment. I had a conversation with an extremely experienced Oracle DBA, and he told me that on his best day, when he was most focused, it took him a week to configure Oracle Golden Gate. And within Couchbase, you can do it literally within a minute. And I'll demo this to you in the next slide. So right now, what I'm going to do is to simulate bidirectional XDCR, so both ways. This means that I've got data in Jakarta, I've got data in Singapore, and I want the data to be available in both regions to serve my end users. Now, how many of you here, raise your hands, you want to see 1 million documents being replicated? No one wants to see that. How about 10 million? No one wants to see that. That's fine. I'll give you 100 million documents replicated from Jakarta to Singapore, and we'll take note of how long it actually takes to do this full replication. Now take note of the infrastructure that I'm using. I'm using instances from GCP, 3 nodes, 16 core, 128 gigs of RAM. Now, if I could, I would like to invite you to take out your phones, not to start messaging your partner or your friends, but to take out a stopwatch, because in just a moment, we're going to start the replication. Okay, what you see here is Couchbase Capella, our fully managed database as a service hosted on the cloud. Now, I've got 2 databases, source database and a target database. Now, these are both 3 nodes, but one thing to take note of is that my source database is in Singapore and my target database, that's all right, is also in Singapore. I wanted to create one in Jakarta to show you the difference, but I must have clicked the wrong button. That's fine. So, in my source database, I'm going in there, and I'll show you how many documents we have. So go to buckets, and you would see in my source repo, I've got 100 million and 200,000 documents in there. Now, what I'll do is to show you the steps it takes to set up replication using XDCR. I simply go to replication, set up replication. I can choose whether I want it to be 1-way or 2-way. Now, within the source database, I select the source bucket, and that will be my source repo. And now for my target database, I'm going to select target database, and I'm going to select for my target bucket, I want it to be target repo. Now, at this point in time, you might be wondering, Ben, do I have to synchronize all my data? Am I able to synchronize a little bit of my data? And the answer is, it's up to you. If you want to synchronize all your data, you simply disable filter replication and hit setup replication. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what I've just done is the steps taken to set up XDCR. Now, what's going on under the hood is that it's making a connection between your source database and your target database. It is setting up whether you want it to be 1-way or 2-way. So for a 1-way replication, it is for a disaster recovery scenario, where a Godzilla attack happens in Singapore or Indonesia, and you want your disaster cluster, your standby cluster, to be now used for your workload. Or you could set up a bidirectional XDCR. So bidirectional XDCR means that your users in Jakarta can have the same user experience as your users in Singapore. So it's still setting up. Give it a moment. It'll be done soon. And it's done. So ladies and gentlemen, those of you with your stopwatch open, hit start. Now what I'm going to show you next is I'm going to maneuver and navigate my way to my target database. Hit buckets. And I'm going to show you that as we are speaking, data is already being replicated to my target database. Right now, there are 6 million documents. So back to my presentation. So we let that run. I hope your stopwatch is running because mine isn't. Can we go back to my slides? Right. So now let's do a little bit of an e-commerce deep dive. Now, one of my customers within the APAC region is the largest e-commerce in Japan. Now, a name might come to your mind, but I can't say it. They started using Couchbase for their main e-commerce platform, and now they are the largest e-commerce in Japan, and they use us for many services, not just for their main e-commerce platform. So it includes car and automotive services and products. It includes loyalty points, managing the shopper's catalog, the shopper's personal information, and it also expanded to now doing travel and hotel booking. So this is how an architecture would look like when you would have an application connect through an API that leads to the cluster. Now, after that, those departments were using Couchbase and they found it really effective, they found it really performant, they then turned behind and say, have you guys used Couchbase? And that team that was behind them was the advertisement delivery team. And they have got some team members in Japan, but also some team members in Singapore. And I've interacted with them almost every day. So when I was speaking to the advertisement team, I was asking them, why choose Couchbase and what does a disaster look like to you? Because as much as you want to ask what does success look like to you, here at Couchbase, we want to ensure that our users never ever go towards a disaster scenario. So they gave me a very interesting point, and they said, to be honest with you, Ben, the only reason we are choosing Couchbase is because we can deliver advertisements using Couchbase in microseconds. And anything above 1 millisecond, that means hundreds of thousands lost, if not millions, on their sales event. So let's take a look at that screen over there for now. I've narrowed down the requirements as a summary for you guys to see, but what they needed was performance at scale. Now, they also needed the last point of requirements, which was an active cluster. So I asked them why, and they told me, if advertisements take longer than a millisecond, we want to shift our workload from our active 1 cluster to our active 2 cluster. One is in Tokyo and one is in Osaka. So the outcomes, again, very successful with Couchbase. They have used us and they have never had a problem for their super sales event, which runs every quarter. Now you might be wondering, Ben, how come this particular customer is able to do XDCR, or rather able to retrieve data from their database in microseconds? How do they achieve this? And it comes down to Couchbase's architecture. By having a memory-first architecture with KV operations, the ability to say, what is your NIC? What is your national identification number? I want that particular user's full document, his address, his phone number, his maiden name, whatever. Right? And that is all done through KV operations, and that is how our users are able to get sub-millisecond latency. Maybe not. So now we'll talk a little bit about high availability and disaster recovery. And give me a nod if you understand these meanings, and I'll skip through the explanation. Okay, not everyone has nodded, so let me explain it to you. Now, high availability means that when one node goes down, what happens? Is my end user affected? High availability also means do my users in a certain region get the same user experience as my users in a completely geographical location? Now, disaster recovery, or DR, is a very common term in the industry. It means disaster recovery. What happens when a Godzilla attack happens and all my hardware, all my servers have gone down? What happens to my application? So Couchbase is able to say, with our solution and our architectural difference, we can ensure that we help you to tackle your HA and DR needs. So starting off with HA, when you write data into Couchbase, it comes into node number 1, where your active copy is. Now, under the hood, what Couchbase does is it replicates your data to a completely different node. So for simplicity's sake, I've used 3 nodes, and my active is in node number 1, and my replica is in node number 3. So what happens when node number 1 goes down? It's completely fine. your application now calls the data, which is supposed to be in node number 1. Now, your application server knows exactly where the replica copy is, and it goes now to node number 3. So your end user will never ever know that actually one node went down. Now, of course, for DBAs, you would know, you would get an email, and when the DBA get an email, he would go into the database UI, and he will add back in another node. So now it becomes 3 nodes again. And what Couchbase does is it rebalances your data. It distributes the data among the 3 available nodes, and literally your users will never know that one node went down and one node was added back. Now, we also acknowledge that your users may come from all over the world, or within Indonesia, whether your users come from Nusantara or Jakarta or Bali, chilling on the beach. So what Couchbase proposes for such use cases is to make use of XDCR to replicate your data to be nearer to your end user. So you have an example is, you've got a bunch of users in Jakarta, and you have one data center in Jakarta, but you also have now a rising user base in Nusantara. That means you can have one more data center in Nusantara and make use of XDCR to have a bidirectional or unidirectional replication. Now let's take a moment to also understand XDCR. Right, so XDCR doesn't require additional license fees, unlike Oracle Golden Gate. Now XDCR also provides you a lot of benefits. The first being the ease of configuring it. You saw me do it. I took less than a minute. Now if you have faster hands than me, you could probably do it in 10 seconds. It is also infrastructure agnostic, which means whether your primary is on bare metal and your secondary is on the cloud, or whether both are on bare metal or whether both are on cloud, it doesn't matter at all. And the last 2 points, it is highly performant. Now in due time, we'll be going back to the demo to take a look at how much data has already been replicated through XDCR. But that will give you an idea of just how performant it is. And last but not least, XDCR gives you the resilience of the cluster, but not only that, the resilience of your application. When your infrastructure goes down, your users never know, the application is still up and running, and you wouldn't get any complaints or appear on the news. So with that, I'm now going to go back into my Capella cluster. Just give me a moment, Google Meet. Okay, so previously we had stopped at 6 million. Now don't worry, I haven't refreshed my page. It didn't crash. Now, give a raise of hands if you think XDCR was easy to configure. You think you can do it? Okay, a fair few hands. Now, for those of you who are still not too confident about how to use it, not to worry. If you want, after the session, you guys can come down and have a crack at it. So what I'm going to do now is to go refresh my page and take a look at how many documents have been replicated over. So you would see 100 million and 200,000. But right now you're going to tell me, hey Ben, I don't remember it was 100 million. Was it more? Well, let me run a query to show you. So I'm going to go back to my database. I'm going to go to my source. And I hit query. And I have this query that I've prepared beforehand. So who here understands this query? Simple query. And keep in mind, Bukalapak is watching. So how many of you know this query? Okay. So what this query is doing is to select the count of the number of documents, and I'm going to give it a name called total document count from _default, which is my collection. So I run this, and take a look at the output in JSON format. So over here, you can't really see it, but it says, let me see if I can, just a moment. Okay, that's not a good idea. So it says 100 million, 200,000, and 100 documents. Now what I'm going to do is to go to my target database, and I'm going to run the exact same query. So right now I'm running the same thing, account, and you would see the number is exactly the same. 100 million, 200,000, and 100 documents. So I think it is due time. Let's give Couchbase a round of applause for XDCR. So if you could go back to my slides, let's wrap it up here. So what I've done is configuring XDCR in less than a minute. I've replicated over 100 million documents in less than 15 minutes. For those of you on your stopwatch, how long did it take? 12 minutes. I think that's pretty decent. Let's go to the next slide. And with that, we end our presentation and we open the floors for any quick questions.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan, sebelumnya saya dari Bukalapak. Sebagai perkenalan, kita akan putarkan videonya Mbak Yeni Wahid terlebih dahulu.
We in Bukalapak believe business is not just about profit, but bringing a positive impact to as many people as we can. I'm Yeni Wahid, Bukalapak's ESG ambassador. Bukalapak's mission is to create a fair economy for all. This mission drives our contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations to help create a more sustainable future. There are three goals at the core of our business. The first one is eliminating poverty by increasing incomes. We are the largest small business enabler in Indonesia with 42% of market share. Transforming over 10 million traditional mom-and-pop stores into modern retailers, which increases income and helps conquer poverty. For example, Bukalapak helped Mbak Saini transform her store into a modern retailer. After losing her small store to a fire, wiping out 9 years of hard work, Mbak Saini joined Mitra Bukalapak and was able not only to rebuild, but also increase her revenue. Our second goal is reducing inequality by improving market access. There are still gaps in infrastructure and services outside major cities in Indonesia, and we are committed to helping reduce this imbalance. Mitra Bukalapak turns traditional stores into digital services hubs for their communities, offering anything from investment products to phone credit and bill top-ups to training courses. The network serves over 30 million, especially in non-Tier 1 cities. Like Sinta Amang of South Sulawesi, the pandemic dried up her wedding gown rental business. She then decided to enroll in Kartu Prakerja and purchased 6 training courses from Bukalapak, which helped her increase visitors on her social media as well as visitors at her store. Our third goal is promoting gender equality through equal access to opportunity. Mitra Bukalapak has empowered more than 2 million women to run their own businesses and also has given them access to business financing options. In 2021 alone, we provided business training sessions, workshops, and seminars for 15,000 women. Bukalapak has also started a campaign to donate 10,000 laptops to women and students in Indonesia. Internally, 38% of Bukalapak's executives are women, the highest of any Indonesian unicorn. In 2020, Bukalapak won the UN Women Asia Award for being a gender-responsive marketplace. Tante Yuni of Sidoarjo is one of the thousands of women who benefited from Bukalapak in the form of training in financial planning. It gave her the skills to manage her finances well, to increase her output, and make her dreams a reality. Our ESG strategy is a blueprint to make millions of dreams come true. Like Tante Yuni, because we know that the future is ours to build. So, let's build the brightest one together. Let's bring impact to as many people as we can.
Oke, sebagai perkenalan lagi kembali. Nama saya Antoni Rusi. Saya di Bukalapak dari tahun 2017, sudah hampir 6 tahun. Dari awal saya masuk ada sebagai sistem engineer, masuk ke DevOps, jadi DevOps karena sudah ke cloud dan saat ini sudah di arsitek infrastruktur. Dan sebelumnya mostly working sebagai sistem engineer, Linux engineer dan cloud engineer. Oke, next. Sebagai tambahan perkenalan tentang Bukalapak. Bukalapak adalah unicorn pertama kali yang go public. Kemudian dimulai dari 2010 oleh Mas Zaki sebagai internet forum, sebagai alternatif dari jual beli yang sebelumnya ada di Kaskus dan di forum-forum yang lainnya. Kemudian ketika sudah mencapai 120 juta user, yang kebanyakan adalah di non-tier, kota-kota non-tier 1 di daerah. Kemudian Bukalapak juga yang berusaha mengangkat tradisional warung, toko di daerah-daerah untuk menjadi lebih ngeh, lebih open terhadap internet, sehingga mereka lebih bisa open terhadap kompetitif di luar sana. Misi utamanya adalah fair economy to all, to provide a fair economy for all. Jadi karena ekonomi merata untuk yang lainnya akan membuat kemajuan dari sistem yang ada di Indonesia. Oke, nggak cuman itu, sampai sejauh ini Bukalapak sudah mengembangkan beberapa ekosistemnya. Yang utama yang mungkin teman-teman lebih aware adalah di marketplace Bukalapak itu sendiri. Kemudian kita ngembangin ke O2O, mitra, buka bangunan. Kemudian sektor game kita juga ada di Item X, Item Cool, Lapak Gaming. Dan bahkan kita partnership dengan beberapa entity yang lainnya seperti Alobank dan Alofresh. Oke, kita akan masuk ke main topik. Sebelumnya saya ingin bertanya dulu ke teman-teman. Minta tolong angkat tangan yang di tempat bekerjanya masih menggunakan Bastion. Oke. Sebagai perkenalan mungkin yang kalau belum tahu apa itu Bastion, umumnya Bastion digunakan di enterprise atau perusahaan yang memiliki lumayan banyak server atau infrastruktur yang harus diakses dari sisi user. User di sini adalah user IT-nya ya, bukan user customer. Nah, kalau dilihat di Wikipedia dan sebagainya, kebanyakan Bastion di-provide melalui SSH. Jadi ya karena paling simple itu kan protokol yang umum adalah SSH, dan SSH mempunyai beberapa fitur yang membuat jump in dari user ke dalam environment di production, pre-production, staging dan sebagainya akan lebih mudah. Sebenarnya Bastion nggak cuman di-provide oleh SSH, saya yakin banyak produk di luar sana yang tidak harus menggunakan protokol SSH, akan tetapi yang paling sering digunakan di Indonesia sejauh saya tahu itu adalah menggunakan SSH. Umumnya ketika menggunakan SSH, komen-komennya mungkin teman-teman sudah familiar ya, proxy jump. Jadi kalau umpamanya kalau mau SSH, kita mau SSH ke dalam sebuah server, itu kita harus masuk ke Bastion dulu. Bastionnya dimasukkan ke dalam konfigurasi proxy jump. Kemudian kalau ingin mengakses sebuah sistem lain, umpamanya database atau vault atau web server secara internal, biasanya kita menggunakan port forwarding. Yaitu port forwardingnya menggunakan SSH itu sendiri, menggunakan sintaknya -l. Kemudian biasanya kita mapping ke dalam localhost, karena memang defaultnya itu adalah mapping ke localhost, walaupun sebenarnya kita bisa menambahkan IP yang ada di sistem kita ya. Tapi umumnya adalah localhost, sehingga ketika kita mau mengakses database itu biasanya kita ubah yang sebelumnya seharusnya adalah db.internalcompany.com, itu kita ubah menjadi localhost. Begitu juga ketika menggunakan ketika kita mau mengakses vault, di sini contohnya ini menggunakan vaultnya HashiCorp, kita mapping terhadap localhostnya. Kemudian kita login dan kita akses seperti biasa. Ini umum cara menggunakan Bastion yang paling mudah menggunakan port mapping. Akan tetapi kalau ketika perusahaan itu sudah memiliki katakanlah lebih dari 500 server, database-nya sendiri mungkin sudah ada 300 server, dan itu terbagi menjadi production, pre-production, staging, dan sebagainya. Apakah semuanya akan di mapping ke localhost? Kira-kira possible atau enggak? Itu akan, ya possible aja. Walaupun kita tahu ya, localhost itu mapping IP-nya adalah 127.0.0.1, yang mana itu dia maskingnya adalah /8. Sebenarnya possible saja, tapi apakah database engineer-nya mau melakukan itu? Biasanya yang muncul dari mereka adalah mengeluarkan Tmax-nya. Mereka pakai Tmax, mereka open banyak window-nya dan sebagainya. Saya pernah menemukan salah satu teman saya yang ini contohnya Tmax di sini sebenarnya masih terlalu dikit. Saya pernah melihat sampai banyak banget, ada 20-an lebih. Dan itu tulisannya sangat-sangat kecil, dan karena dia terbiasa dia switching ke sana ke sini dan sebagainya. Tapi apakah ini efisien? Bayangkan ketika karena satu dan lain hal kita harus mengakses dua environment, satu di pre-production, satu di production. Ya karena harus troubleshoot, kita harus compare antara versi yang di production sama pre-production. Kemudian kita coba, karena nggak mungkin kita langsung melakukan di production, kita harus coba dulu di pre-production. Ketika kita semua mapping ke localhost dan mungkin harus mengakses server-server yang lain, seaman apakah kita bisa tidak melakukan kesalahan human error untuk melakukan drop database di production? Ini sangat-sangat possible sekali. Atau katakanlah kita mau copy paste dari vault, kita open vaultnya, ternyata yang di copy salah, umpamanya harusnya itu dari production, ternyata ambilnya dari production dan lain sebagainya. Nah sebenarnya SSH itu memprovide tidak cuman port mapping, tapi juga dynamic mapping ya, dynamic port forwarding. Ini mungkin familiar bagi teman-teman yang saya ingat ya, zaman dulu ketika banyak operator telekomunikasi di kita, HP Excel, Indosat dan sebagainya, masih banyak vulnerability. Salah satu yang sering dijual di kasus adalah SSH forwarding seperti ini, sehingga bisa internet gratis. Nah sebenarnya ini sangat-sangat berguna sekali sebagai pengganti dari port mapping. Ketika kita menjalankan main D besar itu ya, ke localhost, mappingnya ke 1080 by default, dia akan listen, SSH-nya akan listen sebuah service yang memprovide fitur dari SOX proxy. Source proxy itu sebuah proxy, tipe proxy yang selevel dengan HTTP, HTTPS proxy dan yang lainnya. Akan tetapi metodenya sedikit berbeda. Dia levelnya di TCP. Kalau HTTP itu kan di layer 7 ya. Kalau source proxy ini di layer, ya masih layer 7 juga, tapi dia bisa memprovide sebuah IP wrapper ya, IP enkapsulasi. Dan kebanyakan software yang ada atau command line atau CLI tools yang ada di sana itu kebanyakan support source proxy. Seperti contohnya curl, dia support proxy, itu nggak cuma SOX 5 ya, bisa SOX 5H, bisa HTTP proxy, bisa HTTPS proxy dan sebagainya. Tapi di sini dia support SOX proxy, sehingga ketika kita menggunakan curl ini lewat SOX proxy-nya, dia akan memakai IP-nya si Bastion, bukan IP-nya dia sendiri. Kemudian vault juga seperti itu, walaupun mekanismenya berbeda. Kalau vault itu menggunakan environment variable. Kemudian kubectl juga sama. Dia harus menggunakan ini HTTPS ini, saya nggak tahu apakah ini salah sengaja atau gimana, tapi berdasarkan dokumentasinya yang terbaru versi Kubernetes versi 1.24 itu menggunakan HTTPS proxy, walaupun value-nya menggunakan SOX proxy itu possible. Dengan begini kita nggak perlu edit config-nya dan sebagainya. Nah, dengan begini kita tahu bahwa kita mau mengakses apa itu tidak perlu mengganti tujuan dari aslinya. Namanya vault ya, kita tetap sama, vaultcompany.com 8200, kemudian kita curl ya, tujuannya tetap kelihatan di sana. Kemudian kubectl juga sama dan sebagainya. Nah, ini membuat human error-nya akan berkurang karena kita tahu kita mau menuju kemana. Cuman kita harus memberikan sebuah konfigurasi khusus untuk si SOX proxy-nya. Nah, bagaimana kalau aplikasinya nggak support? Banyak, sebenarnya banyak sekali aplikasi-aplikasi yang tidak support proxy. Aplikasi-aplikasi yang baru-baru yang mungkin menggunakan Golang, menggunakan Rust dan sebagainya, atau beberapa hal yang memang command line-nya itu tidak memprovide opsi untuk memberikan sebuah proxy. Itu kita bisa menggunakan beberapa tools yang sudah ada. Ini unit base semua. Tapi saya pernah mencoba Soxify dan yang lainnya itu di Windows, walaupun dengan bantuan Sigwin ya. Nah, contohnya MySQL. MySQL tidak mempunyai konfigurasi proxy, walaupun mungkin saya atau di versi yang terbaru atau yang lebih, nah itu saya nggak tahu ya. Tapi last time saya melihat MySQL itu tidak memprovide SOX proxy. Mungkin HTTP proxy mungkin provide, tapi setahu saya untuk SOX proxy dia tidak memprovide. Sehingga kita bisa menggunakan, contohnya di sini adalah Soxify. Ini dari Dante. Dante ini sendiri sebuah software SOX proxy server, tapi juga memprovide klien modelnya, sehingga kita bisa menggunakan seperti ini. Jadi sebelum command line-nya aslinya, kita tambahkan Soxify-nya di depan seperti hanya sudo, sehingga MySQL-nya nanti benar-benar bisa mengakses dp01 internalcompany.com. Alternatif lain bisa pakai tsox atau sysox. Tor yang untuk dark web itu juga mempunyai Torify yang defaultnya sih 9050, tapi sebenarnya konsepnya sama karena dia menggunakan protokol SOX proxy, itu juga bisa digunakan. Nah, bagaimana hal ini bisa terjadi? Artinya, kenapa aplikasi yang sebelumnya itu tidak mempunyai opsi untuk proxy itu tiba-tiba hanya dengan menambahkan satu command line di depannya menjadi bisa? Itu karena LD preload. Ini spesifik Linux, by the way, walaupun di Windows atau di macOS atau di FreeBSD mempunyai persamaannya, tetapi kita fokus di Linux. LD preload itu bisa kita bayangkan seperti halnya kita mau hooking atau kita mau bahasa programnya itu adalah kita tikung supaya dia belok. Tikung di sini artinya adalah functionnya. Jadi setiap kali sebuah aplikasi mau mengakses ke remote server, pada dasarnya kan dia berusaha menggunakan function-function dari OS-nya, dari library-nya, dari kernelnya. Satu hal yang umum adalah open socket atau send atau receive dan sebagainya. Ketika Soxify tadi, ketika aplikasi yang di Soxify tadi berusaha connect ke remote server, ke database server dan sebagainya, hal yang dia lakukan pertama kali dia akan open sebuah socket, TCP socket. Nah, open itu sendiri sebuah function. Sehingga kalau kita belokkan function open tadi ke arah library kita yang mempunyai fitur source proxy, dan setelah itu kita balikin lagi ke tempat awalnya, maka kita bisa membuat fitur proxy terhadap aplikasi yang tidak support sebelumnya. Untuk simpelnya seperti ini. Di sini sampelnya kita pakai function system. Sistem ini sesimpel jalanin program aja. Jadi dia menjalankan echo hello world. GCC standar, ya munculnya standarnya karena expectednya echo hello world, ya hello world akan muncul. Kemudian kita buat satu lagi sebuah file C, tapi kita compile menjadi library. Library kalau di Linux itu adalah .so. Kita define real system artinya sistem yang asli ya, function sistem yang asli yang di-provide oleh libc, di mana kita mengambil value-nya, mengambil pointernya, mengambil alamat aslinya menggunakan DLSym, kita simpan menjadi real system T sebagai type definition-nya. Kemudian kita define satu function yang namanya sama dengan target yang akan kita hook, yang akan kita belokkan. Di sini kita perlu memprovide sistem di sana. Kemudian dikompil dengan spesifik shared FPIC menjadi SO. Kemudian hanya dengan kita tambahkan environment variable LD preload dengan full path-nya ke SO file-nya, maka di sana echo-nya yang sebelumnya hello world kita belokkan menjadi IMD max guru. Ini bisa dikembangkan ya. Ini kan kita sekedar hanya mengganti echo-nya, mengganti output-nya. Tapi kita bisa menambahkan ini sebelum real system kita tambahkan apapun itu. Ini termasuk banyak digunakan oleh malware atau virus nggak cuma di Linux ya, di Windows dan sebagainya. Ininya adalah membelokkan function yang sebenarnya dan bisa menjalankan apapun sebelum function yang utamanya dijalankan. Akan tetapi LD preload ini ada limitasinya. Yang pertama adalah dia hanya bisa dijalankan ini kalau bahasa di Windowsnya exe ya, kalau di Linux of binaries yang dynamically link. Untuk ngeceknya dia dynamically link atau tidak adalah menggunakan LDD. Di sana kelihatan kalau curl itu dikompil secara dynamic sehingga dia akan mengeluarkan output, oh dia butuh library ini. Akan tetapi ketika sebuah program atau software itu dikompil secara statik, contohnya kubectl, dan ini banyak sekali, umumnya Golang ya. Golang itu dikompil secara statik karena biasanya Golang nanti runningnya di dalam Docker atau di dalam Kubernetes pod, sehingga biasanya untuk supaya lebih simpel bisa jalan tanpa memerlukan OS yang utamanya mau gimana pun, biasanya di-compile secara statik. Nah, karena statik artinya adalah semua function yang dibutuhkan, termasuk dari libc tadi, umpamanya open, kemudian sistem tadi contohnya, kemudian send, receive, dan sebagainya, apapun itu, semua dimasukkan di dalam satu binary kubectl tersebut, sehingga dia nggak butuh library apapun. Jadi kalau kita jalankan file kubectl, dia akan muncul di sana, akan kelihatan statically link. Atau kalau pakai LDD yang sebelumnya possible di dynamically link, akan muncul error not a dynamic executable. Limitasi kedua adalah set UID yang ada itu tidak akan direspek, artinya akan diignore. Contoh paling simpel itu adalah sudo. Sudo itu dia set UID-nya aktif, karena pada dasarnya set UID itu dibutuhkan supaya siapapun yang menjalankan program tersebut akan menjadi user lain. Nah, kita jalanin sudo itu kan biasanya user kita ya gitu, UID-nya 1000 katakanlah. Tapi sudo itu memerlukan fungsi-fungsi root, sehingga dia harus di set UID aktif. Akan tetapi sebelum benar-benar menjalankan function, menjalankan command line yang akan kita mau, dia akan meminta kita untuk memasukkan passwordnya, akan di-compare dengan password kita, sehingga dia low atau tidak. Nah, set UID ini akan di-ignore oleh LD preload, artinya fungsi itu terjalan, tapi UID-nya akan hilang, artinya akan tetap user kita. Dalam hal ini, sudo kalau kita gunakan dalam LD preload, itu nanti beberapa fungsinya tidak akan sukses, karena beberapa hal dia harus baca etc shadow untuk lihat hash-nya dan sebagainya. Kalau set UID tapi di dalam logic programnya, softwarenya tersebut tidak memerlukan UID-nya itu sendiri, ya tidak ada masalah. Tapi ini adalah limitasi dari LD preload. Akan tetapi di modern days ya, itu kebanyakan tools yang ada itu semuanya, hampir semuanya itu statically linked. Karena populernya Golang yang digunakan oleh banyak tools DevOps Engineer, kubectl, Kafka CTL, kemudian banyak yang lainnya, itu hampir semua dikompil secara statik, sehingga mekanisme dari LD preload itu tidak akan jalan. Untungnya kubectl tadi memberikan opsi HTTPS proxy, tapi banyak tools yang lain ya. Saya sendiri sering menggunakan Kafka CTL karena bawaan dari Kafka command line Java itu kurang begitu fleksibel. Nah, itu tidak mempunyai opsi SOX proxy dan dia dikompil menjadi static, sehingga trik SOX proxy LD preload tadi tidak jalan. Nah, alternatifnya banyak. Ada SSH, saya nggak tahu nyebutnya gimana tuh, Shuttle, Red Sox, Tuntu Sox, Network Manager SSH, dan built-in dari OpenSSH itu sendiri, built-in VPN. Konsep dari alternatif ini adalah dia akan mengkonvert SOX proxy menjadi sebuah interface di dalam sistem kita, sehingga nanti akan menjadi kita nanti bisa konfigur apapun ya. Defaultnya kan biasanya ETH0. Kita bisa katakanlah kita SOX 50 atau SOX 0 gitu interface-nya. Kemudian kita nanti set IP di sana, dan underhood di dalam logic dari aplikasi-aplikasi ini, dia akan di routing ke SOX proxy atau SSH ya. Kalau kita lewat kita konfigur SSH tadi sebagai SOX proxy. Nah, akan tetapi alternatif ini tentunya ada drawback-nya. Network Manager SSH itu sudah masuk ke ini ya, ke Network Manager upstream. Artinya di Genome yang terbaru di KDE itu sudah ada, tinggal diinstal aja. Itu kita bisa bikin VPN dari existing SSH. Tapi memerlukan perubahan di OpenSSH servernya. Ini problem kalau ternyata SSH servernya itu di harden. Memang tidak boleh gitu, dan itu umum sekali. Bastion sangat mungkin sekali untuk di hardening karena itu paling sebagai pintu utamanya gitu. Kemudian kita memerlukan juga global routing di laptop kita atau di sistem yang akan menjalankan SSH client atau SOX proxy ini. Problemnya adalah ketika kita harus merubah global routing table, itu bayangkan ketika kita mau connect yang melalui SOX proxy itu hanya spesifik IP, yang lainnya mau normal gitu, karena sudah ada karena pakai jalur LAN dan sebagainya. Kemudian di sistem yang lain sebaliknya, jadi yang umpamanya 10.000/16 itu kita mau semua routing ke SOX proxy, tapi yang 172.16 sekian itu nggak perlu. Tapi di tools yang lain kita perlu sebaliknya. Nah ini akan sangat-sangat meribetkan ya. Jadi kita pinter-pinter ngatur routing table-nya. Nah ini beberapa tools yang bisa digunakan. Tapi yaitu global routing table ini tidak sesuatu hal yang mudah untuk dikonfigur, apalagi di sisi user. Dan alternatif yang ada di sini itu hanya core-nya saja, hanya core functionality-nya aja. Dia tidak memprovide kemudahan dalam mengatur routing table-nya. Mungkin network manager SSH mungkin ada ya, tapi ya agak ribet kalau kita mau switching. Nah untuk built-in VPN ini, kalau teman-teman mau lihat detailnya itu bisa masuk ke wikinya Arch Linux, di sana detail dijelaskan bagaimana mekanismenya. Oke, next adalah alternatif dari solusi-solusi yang ada. Salah satu yang paling simple itu adalah menjalankan tools yang akan kita running terhadap target remote system itu di dalam Docker, VM, container dan sebagainya. Nah ini mungkin Docker lebih mudah ya. Kita bisa mapping beberapa volume di dalam laptop kita ke dalam kontainer tersebut. Tapi tetap saja kemudahannya agak ribet ya. Jadi bayangkan seperti ini. Saya menjalankan sebuah Docker yang dimana di dalam Docker tersebut nanti saya akan menjalankan katakanlah yang sebelumnya Tuntu SOX. Jadi saya masuk ke Docker, jalanin Tuntu SOX, saya dapat IP di dalam Docker tersebut. Akan tetapi tools yang saya mau jalankan ternyata ada di host laptop saya. Jadi saya harus copy dulu atau pakai mapping folder dan sebagainya. Nah ini salah satu hal-hal yang mungkin harus di setup terlebih dahulu sebelum kita mau melakukan alternatif ini yang akan jalan di dalam kontainer. Alternatif lainnya adalah menggunakan Linux namespace. Bagi teman-teman yang belum familiar dengan Linux namespace ini sebenarnya salah satu core teknologi yang digunakan oleh Docker, Podman, kontainer di Kubernetes. Ini fitur yang paling basic. Sebenarnya dia menggunakan C group ya. Kalau teman-teman sudah pernah baca C group versi 2, C group versi 1 dan sebagainya. Nah ini Linux namespace inilah yang menggunakan core function dari kernel Linux tersebut. Salah satu tools yang umum yang biasanya sudah terinstall itu adalah Unshare. Kemudian ada Bubble Wrap. Bubble Wrap ini sebenarnya mirip-mirip dengan unshare, hanya saja kalau unshare itu beberapa fiturnya harus jalan sebagai root. Kalau bubble warp ini bisa user biasa. Atau kalau hanya sekedar menjalankan beberapa namespace yang hanya terkait tentang network, kita bisa menggunakan IP.NS. IP.NS ini berasal dari package-nya IP root 2. Ini pengganti dari ifconfig. Ini banyak sekali IP address show, IP link show dan sebagainya. Salah satunya adalah IP.NS. Nah, network namespace ini beberapa hal bisa digunakan combine dengan tools yang ada di sini. Itu akan membuat kemudahan untuk connectivity dari specific tools. Oke, mungkin saya akan coba langsung demo aja untuk lebih mudah dipahami. Oke, di sini saya punya dua terminal. Untuk pertama, saya perlihatkan IP address-nya terlebih dahulu ya. Saya coba tunjukkan. Saya mempunyai interface apa saja. Di sini ada LO, kemudian IP LAN, kemudian WiFi. Dan satu ini net zero ini bisa di-ignore, ini salah satu custom saya. Oke. Ini saya belum menjalankan apapun. Interface-nya seperti itu. IP utamanya adalah yang 10.1.137.213. Ini WiFi. Kalau saya curl ke http://bin.org/ip, ini IP-nya adalah 125.62.92.17 ya, IP-nya Bukalapak ya, outputnya internet. Kemudian saya akan menjalankan SSH tunnel dynamic. Oke. Kemudian pindah ke bawah, ini sama IP-nya. Kemudian kalau kita lihat nanti akan ada satu listener baru. Ini 1080. Ini dari service yang di-provide oleh si SSH sebagai dynamic proxy. Nah, saya akan menggunakan IP.NS untuk membuat satu network namespace. Oke, sintaknya simple, IP.NS add, terserah namanya apa, NS0 dan sebagainya. Kalau dilihat nanti ada namespace-nya apa saja, itu hanya satu di sini. Namespace untuk network ada NS0. Kemudian saya akan menggunakan tune to sock. Tune to sock itu, nah tadi linknya ada ya, nanti saya bisa kasih juga. Itu untuk mengconvert socks proxy menjadi tune device. Tune device itu umum digunakan oleh VPN. Kalau teman-teman pakai OpenVPN, pakai VPN apapun yang lainnya, biasanya dia akan menggunakan tune device juga, biasanya tune 0 gitu kan, atau apapun itu. Nah, ini sama, tune to socks ini dia mengconvert SOX proxy menjadi sebuah interface dan kita bisa set IP di sana sehingga kalau kita kasih routing table ke interface tersebut, di dalamnya lewat tuntu SOX tadi akan di routing ke SOX proxy. Nah, ini akan saya coba jalankan dan ini butuh root ya, karena dia harus membuat tune device. Oke, saya akan buat satu window lagi. Ini kalau dilihat, sorry, saya bikin nah ini SOX 5.0 ini adalah interface baru yang kita buat menggunakan tuntu SOX ya. Di sini sintaksnya adalah tuntu SOX, device-nya apa, nama device-nya, kemudian MTU saya sengaja buat kecil karena kita akan masuk lewat sebuah tunnel SSH yang pastinya akan lebih kecil daripada umumnya 1500, sehingga saya kecilin menjadi 14, 12. Ini custom ya, tapi untuk mengurangi fragmentasi dalam networknya ya sebaiknya lebih kecil daripada 1500. Nah, ini di provide oleh tuntu SOX itu adalah connectivity antara tune device-nya SOX 5.0 ke proxy servernya localhost 127.0.1.10.80. Oke, kita balik ke terminal yang lain. Nah, menariknya dari NetNS ini adalah kita tahu bahwa sebelumnya kita bikin interface ini di hostnya ya, artinya ini masih di host, bukan di dalam sebuah namespace. Ini real di hostnya. Itu kita bikin SOX 5.0 dan ini muncul di bawah juga bersama dengan interface yang lain. Akan tetapi kita bisa memindahkan interface tersebut ke dalam sebuah namespace tanpa menghilangkan connectivity-nya. Nah, ini menariknya. Kita bisa set SOX 5.0 ini sebuah interface untuk dipindahkan ke namespace yang kita telah buat sebelumnya. Nah, sintaknya sesimpel itu. Kita link, set, nama interface-nya, netNS, nama namespace-nya. Oke, ini kalau kita lihat lagi, interface-nya SOX 5.0 akan hilang. Kalau sebelumnya itu ada, ini menjadi hilang karena sudah masuk ke namespace NS0. Ini kita bisa buktikan juga untuk dengan masuk ke dalam namespace yang kita buat tadi menggunakan IP netNS exec ke namespace-nya. Kemudian komannya yang mau dijalankan apa? Nah, konteksnya di sini adalah kita pakai interaktif sehingga kita jalanin bash. Nah, ini defaultnya root ya, karena memang netNS ini butuh root. Ini kalau kita lihat di sini, dan di sini interface-nya cuma ada dua, localhost standar dan SOX 50. Ini karena kita sudah pindahkan masuk ke dalam namespace tadi. Nah, ini murni hanya networknya saja. Jadi kalau umpamanya kita tidak memindahkan SOX 50 tadi ya cuma ada localhost. Akan tetapi sistemnya masih sama dengan sistem kita. Artinya ini bukan kontainer, bukan VM, ya ini laptop saya. Maksudnya ya ini file system yang ada di tempat saya. Kita hanya membuat namespace network untuk network saja. Kemudian karena by default semua network yang ada itu belum di set apa-apa, sehingga localhost-nya pun belum punya IP, SOX 50-nya belum punya IP ya. Kita harus set terlebih dahulu normal. Ini ngeset IP 127.001/8 devlo. Kemudian defaultnya itu localhost pun dia kondisinya down. Jadi kita perlu set ke up. Kita coba lihat lagi, ya dia punya IP dan interface-nya sudah up. Kemudian untuk SOX 50-nya kita juga perlu buat sebuah IP. Kita perlu set IP, IP-nya bebas, terserah, /32 pun oke. Kemudian kita set sebagai up. Kita lihat lagi IP A. Nah di situ localhost 127.0.1, SOX 5-nya 10 gitu ya. Kita set tadi IP-nya 10 next max-nya 32, itu nggak masalah selama kita set default root-nya ke interface tersebut. Ini sintaksnya IP root add default dev nama interface-nya. Sorry, ini saya cancel dulu. Kalau dilihat IP root itu tidak ada routingnya, routing table-nya kosong, jadi kita perlu nambahin. Nah ini IP root defaultnya ke SOX interface SOX 50. Sehingga kalau saya gunakan curl tanpa opsi proxy dan sebagainya ya, itu IP-nya adalah IP dari proxy saya, bastionnya, konteksnya di sini adalah bastionnya. Jadi kalau kita lihat di sini, saya tadi SSH tunnelnya saya menggunakan verbose, jadi kelihatan di sini ada forwarding dan ada channelnya dari TCP dan sebagainya. Oke. Demikian, mungkin balik lagi ke slide. Oke, selanjutnya sebelum teman-teman ada pertanyaan, saya ingin bertanya terlebih dahulu. Dengan adanya SOX proxy dengan dynamic tadi, fungsi dari bastion yang sebelumnya adalah port mapping itu menjadi useless. Bahkan dengan pembuktian demo saya tadi, bastion yang seharusnya memberikan security tambahan bahwa ini boleh ke sini, ini boleh ke sini, ini nggak boleh dan sebagainya, menjadi hilang, menjadi fungsinya hilang karena menjadi sebuah interface yang dimana kita bisa connect semua kita. Itulah kenapa judul saya adalah How I Make Bastion Useless. Thank you.